Hello everyone. Welcome to our presentation, CryoMEM, a 4 Kelvin to 300 Kelvin, 1.3 GHz EDRAM macro with hybrid 2T gain cell in a 28 nanometer logic process for cryogenic applications. I am Rakshit Saligram. My co-authors are Suman Datta and Arijit Echod. A little bit about myself. I am a graduate research assistant at the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Georgia Tech. I am the third year of my PhD program. I have completed my master's in electrical engineering from University of Southern California, Los Angeles. My current research interests include cryogenic computing and VLSI systems and quantum devices and circuits. This is the outline of today's presentation. We shall introduce with a growing need for the cryogenic memory for various applications. Then we shall look at some of the key measured CMOS characteristics at cryogenic temperatures. Next, we shall examine the different 2T gain cell architectures and have a rational explanation as to why we think some work and others don't. Following this, we will explain the 2T gain cell embedded DRAM array architecture and look at the various characterizations that have been performed at room temperature down to 4 Kelvin. We try to benchmark this work and conclude the talk. In the pursuit of higher digital performance and for finding new applications in emerging computing models and operating conditions, a low temperature and cryogenic computing is gaining momentum. Generally speaking, low temperature is anything below room temperature and up to 150 Kelvin, and below 150 Kelvin, it is deemed as cryogenic temperature. In particular, space electronics, which encompasses satellites to lunar and Martian rovers, and deep space telescopes operating between 4 Kelvin and 200 Kelvin, digital control in fuel cell electric vehicles operating between 20 Kelvin and 80 Kelvin, digital peripherals of quantum computers operating between 10 millikelvin and 100 Kelvin. Further, cryocMOS computing has been shown to be a significant performance booster for high-performance computing systems with process retargeting. This includes application targeted to data centers, drug discovery, weather prediction, etc., which can use cryo-control chips for higher performance. All of these require temperature scalable process technology and digital logic and memory. For all the applications mentioned in the previous slide, we need a high density, large capacity, and high bandwidth memory. Especially, one, for cryogenic high performance computing platforms, and in general, to bridge the compute memory performance gap seen here in the form of memory wall. Obviously, a large on-time memory translates to better performance. Two, quantum computers. A quantum computer will require significantly large capacity memory to store quantum programs consisting of quantum instructions which manipulate and measure the qubit states according to quantum algorithms. This memory must be placed close to the qubits at low temperature to reduce decoherence. Three, superconducting computers. Though there are several memory technologies like vortex transitional devices, Josephson junctions, pi junctions, pseudo spin wall barriers, etc., they are dealing with multiple challenges like low density, large access times, low reliability, integrability, etc. Thus, CMOS-based cryogenic memory solution presented in this work is crucial in all these aspects. The known and well understood CMOS technology-based cryogenic memory offers other advantages like higher performance, bit capacity scaling, manufacturability, low refresh power, and low cost per bit. We shall see the key measure transistor properties at low temperature. On the test chip, we fabricate and measure the transistor properties at different temperatures starting from 300 Kelvin and go up to 4 Kelvin. The first set of graphs here, we see the transistor transfer characteristics, that is the drain current versus the gate source voltage across different temperatures for both N-type and P-type bulk transistors. This is a 28 nanometer high-K metal gate technology node. We have 4 graphs corresponding to linear and saturation regions of the two devices. The linear region is defined by a drain source voltage of 100 millivolts and the saturation region is defined by a drain source voltage of 900 millivolts. One of the key observations that we need to make in these graphs is that the slope of the curves increases as we reduce the temperature. That is, the curves become steeper. This means the subthreshold slope reduces as we reduce the temperature. This becomes clear when we plot the subthreshold slope versus temperature graphs shown here in the second set of diagrams for NMOS and PMOS under linear and saturation conditions. We see that the subthreshold slope numbers get closer to the ideal value at lower temperature. Another observation to take away from the transistor transfer characteristics is that the device off currents reduce exponentially at lower temperature, as we can see on the y-intercept of the curves across temperature. At low temperature, the threshold voltage of the device increases due to shift in the Fermi potential and widening of the band gap. The device off current is directly proportional to the negative exponential of the threshold voltage. Thus, at lower temperature, we see lower off currents. The graph on the left shows measured off currents for NMOS and PMOS normalized to the room temperature value. The off current reduces by close to 6 orders of magnitude, going from 300 Kelvin to 4 Kelvin. This works out for the benefit of memory devices that store data in the form of charge, as they can now hold it for longer without any losses. At lower temperature, the channel transport improves due to increase in the mobility of the charge carriers, yielding higher on current. In this graph, we see the improvements in the saturation currents across temperature. At room temperature, the NMOS saturation current value is approximately 15% higher than that of the PMOSs. But around 270 Kelvin, we see the trend to get reversed. Both devices show improvements as we go to lower temperature. However, the PMOS device shows the highest improvement at 4 Kelvin, which is 1.9x compared to its room temperature value, while the NMOS device shows its highest improvement of 1.3x at 70 Kelvin. Thus, operating CMOS at lower temperature is beneficial as we get higher on current, lower leakage, better subthreshold slope, and lower thermal noise. Next, we shall examine the different 2T gain cell structures. First, let us consider the NMOS gain cell. During the write one operation, the data to be written is placed on the write bit line, the WBL, and the write word line is asserted high. This will charge the storage node to WBL, but with a threshold voltage drop across the write transistor. When the write word line is deasserted, the junction capacitance Cj will couple on the storage node to deplete some of the stored charge. Further, later during the operation, when the return one is being read, the high to low transition on the read word line will couple with the storage node to further reduce the stored charge. The writing and the reading of a 0 will be clean. In the case of PMOS gain cell, write 1 followed by read 1 has the following waveforms and they are clean. But when a 0 is getting written, the low to high transition on the write word line will inject charge to the storage node through the junction capacitance, and the assertion of the read word line will inject more charge correcting the stored value. Thus, NMOS only and PMOS only gain cells undergo two charge injections that corrupt the data. At scaled node, the overlap capacitance is higher, causing higher charge injection. The problem exacerbates at the lower temperature due to sharper signal transitions arising from steeper IDS VGS characteristics, making them unsuitable. Next, we look at the hybrid gain cell structure. Here, the write transistor is p-type and the read transistor is n-type. In order to write a 1, the write bit line is asserted and the write word line is deasserted. When the written 1 needs to be read, the read word line is deasserted, and this high to low transition will cause charge injection from the read word line to the storage node. Similarly, when the 0 is being written, the low to high transition on the write word line will cause charge to be injected through the junction capacitance. Even though there are two charge injections happening, note that they affect different data. And both of them assist the stored charge, which is better than the previous two, where they deteriorated them. Thus, the hybrid gain cells are better, and the memory array in this work features them. The hybrid gain cell provides added advantage of balanced PN density. The table here shows the status of the read word line, write word line, read bit line, and the write bit line for different operations. The layout of a hybrid gain cell is shown in this figure. The total area of the gain cell is 460 nanometer by 1252 nanometer. Note that this gain cell structure is not optimized for area, but however, previous designs have shown that the gain cells can provide more than 2x improvement in the density compared to SRAM. Next, we shall look at the embedded DRAM array architecture. The 2T gain cell based embedded DRAM array architecture is shown in this figure. It is a 1024-bit subarray arranged in one bank with 32-bit word length in an open bitline architecture. Individual words are selected by an address decoder, which decodes 5 bits of address to one of 32 hot decoded word line outputs. To improve the area, we use pre-decoding. The array uses per column cross-coupled strong arm-based latch comparators as sense amplifiers with external tunable analog reference voltage to decode the read bits into the readout flip-flops. The sense amplifier is enabled by a AE bar strobe signal applied to the gate of the PMOS, which will resolve the sense nodes to the rails. The bit lanes must be pre-charged before the read operation, and the pre-charge circuit is shown here. The strobe signal generator and the write circuitry generate all the necessary control signals internally through a series of delay buffers and XOR gates starting from external read clock. The key signal and the timing diagram are depicted here. First, the write address is provided, followed by the write clock signal. This will internally generate the write bit line and the write word line signal to store the data to the chosen cell. In order to read the data, the read address needs to be issued, followed by the read clock, which will generate the read word line, read select, sense amplifier pre-charge, sense amplifier enable, and other signals to capture the output. The retention time of the DRAM cell can be determined by the relative phase of the write and the read clocks, both of which are controlled externally. As we see in this figure, the read pulse is issued after the retention time of the cell, and the output is not captured correctly as the cell does not carry sufficient charge to be interpreted as logic 1 by the sense amplifier. This will lead to a read failure. When the relative phase between the pulses is less than or equal to the retention time of the EDRAM gain cell, a correct value is captured at the output. The retention time can thus be determined by measuring the maximum phase difference between the two external clocks. First, let us look at the retention behavior of the EDRAM array. Retention time is characterized by the capacitance of the storage node and the net leakage of the cell. The retention time is determined at multiple temperatures, and the curves of probability of failure versus retention time is drawn. We characterize 12 samples of EDRAM subarray, yielding a total of 12 kilobits at a supply voltage of 1 volt with 1 iteration per sample. The median retention time here improves from 2.4 microseconds at 300 Kelvin to 6.5 seconds at 4 Kelvin, demonstrating 2.7 in 10 power 6x improvement, while the 3 sigma fail rates improves by an equivalent amount. The linear scaling of the subthreshold slope will result in an exponentially lower leakage current and higher retention time. The retention time statistics are calculated across different supply voltages and show superlinear scaling with increasing VDD across temperature. Shown here on the right is a graph of mean retention time versus supply voltage for 3 key temperature points. Next, we characterize the performance. The maximum frequency of operation is determined at different supply voltages across temperature for both read and write, and the worst case determines the Fmax. We see a peak Fmax of 1.3 gigahertz at a supply voltage of 1.1 volt at 4 Kelvin. The improvement in the Fmax across temperature is shown here in the graph on the right side for 3 supply voltages and indicates 24.7% improvement at 4 Kelvin from room temperature at a 0.8 volt VDD and up to 33.3% improvement at 1.1 volt VDD. This is the direct translation of improved transistor characteristics at low temperature. Power is one of the key design aspects of a memory design. The array is tested for full bandwidth conditions with back-to-back read and write cycles across temperature. The first graph is power versus bandwidth for 3 temperature points. The peak bandwidth at each supply voltage is used to determine the power consumption at different supply voltages. The peak array bandwidth of 4.2 gigabits per second at 761 microwatt per kilobit is measured at 300 Kelvin, and it improves to 5.24 gigabits per second at 560 microwatt per kilobit at 4 Kelvin. This will result in a net energy efficiency improvement in terms of gigabits per watt to be 1.7x, which is due to the enhanced performance of critical path circuits, 10 power 6x decrease in the refresh rate, and near absence of leakage at 4 Kelvin. The array refresh power reduces to less than 1 nanowatt per kilobit at 4 Kelvin. The read energy is 360 femtojoules per kilobit at 300 Kelvin and reduces to 340 femtojoules per kilobit at 4 Kelvin. And the write energy is 480 femtojoules per kilobit at 300 Kelvin and reduces to 425 femtojoules per kilobit at 4 Kelvin. Another aspect of dynamic memory is the standby power. The standby power, which includes the refresh power and the leakage power from the peripherals, is determined across mean retention time by varying the operating temperature at a supply voltage of 1 volt. This is shown in the graph on the left. The temperature points corresponding to the retention time are annotated. Next, we determine the macro array power as a function of activity factor. The access pattern is 1 write followed by 1 read and m no ops. We see the variation for 3 temperature points for different values of m. At higher values of m, at 300 Kelvin, most of the array power is consumed in the refresh operation, and this reduces by 5.8x at 4 Kelvin. We benchmark against the existing prototypes of low temperature memories. The key highlight is that this design is scalable in size and temperature and can be monolithically integrated. Along with a low array power and high density, this design is better than the non-CMOS and hybrid counterparts. The die micrograph and the chip characteristics are shown here. This is a 28 nanometer high-K metal gate CMOS process node. We use 1 poly 9 metal stack BEOL. The memory array size is 1 kilobit with 32-bit word size. The gain cell area is 0.5704 micrometer square. On the concluding lines, in this paper, we demonstrate a working prototype of 1 kilobit 2T gain cell based embedded DRAM capable of operating at a wide range of temperatures from 4 Kelvin to 300 Kelvin. Summarizing the key results, we see 5.24 gigabits per second bandwidth at 1.3 gigahertz at 4 Kelvin. The median retention time improves from 2.4 microseconds at 300 Kelvin to 6.5 seconds at 4 Kelvin, giving more than 6 orders of magnitude improvement. Up to 5.8x reduction in the array standby power is obtained at 4 Kelvin for access patterns having higher number of no-ops. The ultra-low leakage storage node, due to the cryogenic behavior of the scaled transistor, makes this a promising memory solution for a wide variety of applications, especially for quantum and superconducting computers. We would like to thank our sponsors for supporting this work. These are some of the references. Thank you.